I remember having to send a client an invoice, and I think the invoice was like maybe $60,000. And it made me so nervous. And I realized because if someone sent me an invoice for $60,000, I'd be like hiding under the table crying. But the person in front of me looked at the invoice, cut the check, handed it over, and it was no big deal. And that was when I realized that not everybody has the same money concerns or level of funds or access to funds. And now we're sending invoices that are, a few $100,000 with the same result from a client of cutting the check. Here you go. We're transferring the money. It'll be in your account in a few days. So it's really been I now have millions of dollars coming through my firm, which is wild.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Pivot to Profit. I have the amazing Nicole Roe with me. How are you, darling?
I am doing so well today.
Awesome. Well, I am so glad to have you here because you are a powerhouse in lots of ways. So let me officially introduce you. Nicole is a taste maker, authentic lifestyle creator, and the visionary behind our Nickson Interiors, a boutique design firm known for bold, elevated spaces that actually work for real life. With a degree in building construction from Georgia Tech and over 15 years of hands-on experience, Nicole brings unmatched technical know-how and creative flair to every project. Her clients are busy professionals with great taste and trust her to craft spaces that reflect their personal brand and how they truly live. Based in Central Florida with her husband and four boys, Nicole infuses her adventures, intentional lifestyle into a design philosophy rooted in function, beauty, and authenticity. All right, Queen, so amazing to have you here. I cannot wait to dive in. But before we do, hey, listener, if you are a business owner who struggles to understand where your numbers are, payroll gets stressful, paying that Amex, you're not sure what's going on, surprise tax bills, just go to pamjordan.com. We would love to talk to you to help you navigate all of that money uncertainty. All right, Nicole, are you ready?
I am so ready.
All right, first question. What did little Nicole want to be when she grew up?
Little Nicole was almost always in a sense of like overwhelm. I knew I was creative. I knew I liked to do things with my hands. I knew I liked to get dirty, but I also knew my brain worked a little different. I was always told, oh, you're super smart. Just try harder, firstborn daughter, people pleaser, all of those things, while everything else just kind of felt a little jumbled.
I got you. So, what was little Nicole, who was a creative, out of the box thinker, taught about money?
That you don't talk about it.
Oh, it was like, don't talk, super
Y-
silent.
Yes, that money always felt scarce, even though my dad was an entrepreneur. My mom stayed at home with us, and he always worked very hard. He traveled for work. We were public school kids, but we lived in California. So we grew up in a higher cost of living area, but it was almost always that there there might never be enough. And I think some of that stems from being in the 90s, late 80s. I had a sister who had health complications. And as we know, as business owners, insurance and all of that question marks, you do hold your money tight, but you also don't tell your wife and your daughters, how much money's coming in and how much is going out. It's just always, we don't talk about it and we don't have the money to go do that.
Got you. Like, that's not an option for us.
100%.
So, building construction in college and then graduated in '09. Tell me the story of how you decided on that degree, especially in that timing, because the '08 construction boom, I'm sure, did not help job prospects.
It was challenging. I always knew that I was probably going to wind up at Georgia Tech. My dad was an engineer from Georgia Tech. Once again, firstborn daughter. That was kind of the direction you were always pushed into. Flashback to first week of college classes. I'm sitting in engineer classes looking around and knew this wasn't for me. I instantly went to my counselor and said, I want to switch majors. And she was like, Nicole, this is the, first week of school. Like, you need to give it some time. I knew I did not do well in those engineering classes and realized there was the College of Architecture.
Mm.
I enrolled into the College of Architecture program, but they do a common first year. So it's architecture, building construction, and industrial design. And once you're taking all those intro classes and all the studio classes, I realized that the construction side of it was really where I wanted to be. I like to see the beginning, the middle, and the end. I like to be part of it. I like to be outside. And I didn't want to be stuck at a desk for, the rest of my career. So we switched to building construction. Didn't tell my dad, honestly, for probably a couple years.
Yeah,
That it was just the way it was, but it actually worked really well. And when I switched in, the graduates were making, 80, $90,000 out of college in '07, early '08, hit '09. That wasn't the case. You weren't able to get a job. My husband was also a building construction major. So we had the, kind of trouble together, but he had the luxury of going home and working for his family businesses. I tried to stick it out in Atlanta for 6 months. The world didn't get better. Shocker. Moved to Florida, followed him there, and was able to get a job.
got you. So how did you cut your teeth in the construction arena in '09 with this degree from Georgia Tech, which is impressive? You did a lot of work, but like how did you start? Because where you are now is something very different.
Yes, I had to come to the realization that I was not going to get a job as a project manager. I was a female in a more rural environment where everyone was struggling for work. But the direction I could go was business development and marketing. Good with people, good, in the environment. I understood construction, and a team of construction companies hired me for that role. So I still had the ability to be part of construction, but in more of a networking, getting to meet everyone in the community, really getting to do some outreach, which honestly, being in a new town was amazing.
Yeah. So when did you migrate from marketing in construction world to realizing that design was really your passion?
When I made the decision to leave the construction companies after we had had our first child, my in-laws hired me to once again do some marketing at their citrus companies part-time. That quickly turned into me renovating the offices.
It's an amazing switch.
And I loved it. It was an old packing house. It hadn't been touched in decades. And we went in and did the lobby and the conference room and some other common spaces. They told me that me being an employee was becoming too expensive because I was just renovating rooms. But I loved it, had another child, and realized that I really needed to figure out something I could do on a small scale, as many of us say, having the little kids at home. And that was when the universe started blessing me with just some smaller paint consultations, styling projects. And as many people know, they just kept getting larger and larger. And fast forward almost 8 years, and I have a full-blown interior design firm.
Hence, our Nickson Interiors was born.
Yes.
Tell me, when you were first in those early years, what was an early financial win for you where you were like, Nicole, I think this is going to work?
I remember having to send a client an invoice, and I think the invoice was like maybe $60,000. And it made me so nervous. And I realized because if someone sent me an invoice for $60,000, I'd be like hiding under the table crying. But the person in front of me looked at the invoice, cut the check, handed it over, and it was no big deal. And that was when I realized that not everybody has the same, money concerns or level of funds or access to funds. And now we're sending invoices that are, a few $100,000 with the same result from a client of cutting the check. Here you go. We're transferring the money. It'll be in your account in a few days. So it's really been I now have millions of dollars coming through my firm, which is wild.
Amazing. So, what did you have to do to your money mindset from little Nicole, where money was hush hush, no one talked about it, to now people are giving you tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars for projects? What did you have to do personally to work through that and recognize that, yes, what I do does matter and it is worth a lot of money?
It really came down to realizing that everybody's financial history and mindset is very different. A lot of our clients either grew up wealthy, So money was always accessible, or they're successful founders who now have come into this money, but they value the services of others. So really letting my fears of going over budget or not having enough money really be pushed aside because it doesn't matter. Me proposing, a $25,000 sectional to somebody might not be a big deal in their eyes at all. So why should I, be nervous or give them that fear? Because if I have fear, they're going to have fear. But if I'm like, yeah, the sectional you want is $25,000, it's a performance fabric, it's down wrap cushions, and it's going to, last you 25 years. They're going to be like, okay, sure.
Fantastic. Let's go.
Yes.
And where like you might not be okay with a $25,000 sectional, they're like, fantastic. What color do I want? It's amazing how, as entrepreneurs and business owners, if we let our money limitations convey across to the client changes their buying habits. But if we don't let that, they're like, yeah, fantastic.
This is very true. And I think the other thing that's come into play is from 2020 onward, everything is a lot more expensive. So we are having to be a lot more confident because if someone purchased a sofa in 2017, that same sofa now is double. And that doesn't mean it's built double as well or, any of that. It's just the cost of goods and the cost of renovation has skyrocketed due to the 2020 and now throw in some of the tariffs and some of the other fees that a bathroom that you might have been able to renovate for 65,000, 10 years ago is now costing 120. And that is where the confidence on my end is this is what it cost, this is why it cost, and this is why it's worth it.
You talk about true luxury is alignment.
I think at one point, luxury in everybody's head was shiny crystal chandeliers and, all of just that, glitz and glamour and expensive name brands. But I think luxury now is really leaning into how you live and the function of everything, but also we all have personal brands, whether you like it or not. You have your pink blazer and your personality. And if someone walked into your home and it was all just beige and boring and nothing there, they'd be like, this isn't really how Pam lives. Like, there's no way that big personality lives in this very boring home. So, the luxury side of it is bringing your brand, your personality, your lifestyle into your space.
So, how do you empower entrepreneurs and business owners who are busy to have alignment at home? Because you are right, my house is not beige, it is bright.
I think it's having the conversation of really diving into who they are and what their goals are. And a lot of times people don't know what that is. So it's amazing how once you get trust from this individual, this client, they can then see what their future could look like in their home and the events they could host, the way they could really start utilizing their home opens so many doors. You can have team members come in, you can have potential clients come in, you can host school events and fundraisers and all of these other things that people at one point never thought was possible. And now you can use it as a way to kind of boost your own image and not in a selfish, weird way, but as a this is who I am as a whole, and this is who my family is as a whole. And once that is shown to the potential client, that is the life they want. That is the lifestyle they do want to live.
Absolutely. And as tax strategists, one of the things that we teach is the Augusta rule, which is where you can rent your home for business 14 days a year, tax-free money. We've done podcasts on it. But what's one thing that I say is, look, you can do photo shoots at your home all day long. And if Nicole has built you a beautiful home space that's in alignment with your brand and your personal brand and your business, when you do photo shoots at your house, which I have done, that's an Augusta rule day. So that is a write-off day. You get paid tax-free money to use your home. So it's all in alignment.
Yes, that is one of the tax strategies we talk about because a lot of people don't really know that, which is wild because, knowing you and some of our other mutual friends, like that is one thing they harp on, and it can be done in so many ways. But it's also just nice to know that, say it's a Thursday after a bit, a little league baseball game, that you can have a bunch of people over for pizza and your house is already ready. It's already set up. It already functions because you've thought about that. You've thought about the ways you can casually entertain or formally entertain, and it's all done for you.
I love it. I love it. So you're based in Central Florida, so you're in Lakeland, correct?
Yes, we are.
My husband went to college in Lakeland, and I have friends that live there. It's a beautiful place. So, but you're not limited to that. So tell us about your footprint and how far you'll go.
We love a distance project. I think the last 5 years have really shown everyone what can be done virtually with some travel. A lot of Floridians, as you know this, they don't live here in the summer. It's way too hot. So they have second homes, across the country, up north or out west, or they have beach homes. So our distance projects really started that way with people's, second or third home. But then we realized it doesn't need to be, a local client with a second vacation home. We can really do projects all over, new builds, especially renovations. But we do a lot of virtual consultations where it can be that hour meeting for both commercial and residential. And we sit down with the individual and we really dive into what are their goals, what are their challenges, what should be on their checklist, which can turn into a project for us, but it also can just be kind of a DIY situation for them as well.
I got you. So you can do virtual consultations for homes and business where I can like FaceTime you or Zoom and show you my home and you be like, here's your shopping list, Pam.
Yes, 100%. It really helps when people are close. They're like, this is the drawings, these are the colors, we've picked this tile. Now, can we kind of talk through the rest? Or just the list of questions, or just wanting inspiration. And some people just kind of want the permission to make the choices that they really want to make.
And you can be that voice for them to say, yes, that is a good decision.
Yes. And then, once they make the decision, they can tell everyone that, oh, our designer said that we could do X, Y, and Z. And that really works well too.
So what is next for you, Nicole? What's on the horizon for you in the business?
So, what is about to happen in November, which honestly wasn't even on my radar when we started, was we're under contract to buy an office.
Amazing. Congratulations. Tell me about it.
Thank you. We had always, the first couple years we worked out of my home, which is very standard. We've been in a leased warehouse office space for the past 3 years. And we knew we needed something larger, but we also realized that we were ready to separate the warehouse and the design studio. We needed more design studio space and more warehouse space. And once you start looking at lease rates and locations, you realize that there's got to be a better option. So we found a 1940s converted old home that we will be moving into, I believe, the week of Thanksgiving for
That's
our design studio, which is insanely exciting.
Congratulations. That's going to be amazing. And then you can showcase how magical you can create a space for someone.
Yeah, so we'll have access to that. And then the other thing that just worked really well is there's a warehouse that is 3 minutes from my home that we're now able to do all of our receiving there, as well as start receiving for other designers. Because once again, small town, we don't have access to all of the things larger cities have. And being in Lakeland, we're about an hour from Disney, about an hour from Tampa, and that can be a little challenging for logistics. So to have a Central Florida receiving warehouse, I think is really going to elevate the design industry in my county.
Let's talk about your business. How has being the CEO, CFO, COO, and having to manage the money in your own business gone for you? How did you learn P&Ls, balance sheets, all those things?
It was really hard, and I will admit now kind of with a smile is my former bookkeeper from years ago would mail me physical copies of my P&L. I never opened them. I left them sitting in a pile on my desk and they're in the pretty sealed envelope, whatever. I never looked at them until one day we needed to fill out paperwork for something and I handed them to my husband and he goes, "These are sealed." I'm like, "Yeah." Because they were, because for me, I just didn't understand it. I knew we had money in the bank, and we've spoken about this. I followed profit first to an extent, so I knew what was in the accounts. I knew what was going to taxes. I knew what was being paid. So it didn't really feel like that big a deal until it was. And that's when we had a surprise, very high tax bill a few years ago. I was at High Point Market in North Carolina. My husband called and said, "You owe," and it was, I think, $65,000 in taxes. And I hit the pavement and just started crying because I wasn't anticipating that at all because we had very little cash in the bank. So in my head, I had been saving 15%. Like I thought we were going to have, a 20 something $1,000 tax bill. I was mentally prepared for that. And that was when I realized we needed to up level all of our financial services. And I also needed to get my husband a little involved because he understands that world a little better than I. Fast forward to now, I look at my P&Ls, I look at all my accounts, I actually have my QuickBooks login, and we're now knowing that it is a power and there's really the confidence in looking at the numbers, especially right now where, we're kind of in between some projects, we're ready to onboard some new clients, but with interiors, we build two different ways, design fees as well as product. And at times you can kind of be in between those where you have product invoices out, you're waiting on clients to pay. So some months might look very low while other months are, like a lot of money coming in. So I think having the confidence to look at the numbers, but really starting to understand them for me this past 12 months has been huge.
The thing is like, unfortunately, there's shame around money. And like you grew up, we don't talk about money. So it makes total sense that like as a business owner, you're like, I'm just gonna work and know that using profit first, I'm okay. But then the problem comes if you're not looking at those financial statements. And you can really be all right until you start making multiple six figures, seven figures, and then it becomes a problem because it's enough money that you can get the surprise tax bill. So I'm so glad that you opened those envelopes and now understand your financials because it does bring freedom to be able to, like that new building that you're buying. There's no way you could do that if you didn't understand your financials.
100%.
Because the bank never asked you, Nicole, hey, let me see your portfolio of jobs that you've done. Oh, wow, that's a beautiful interior. The first thing they always ask is, let me see your numbers.
And we've been blessed where we've never had to take on money. Even personally, from the day I started, we've never had to put our own money into the company or borrow money. But you're right, now going through the financing of buying this building, although we are doing it as a different LLC, as everyone recommends, you included, we still have to give everything to the bank. And filling out these paperwork has been really eye-opening because normally I would just have my husband do it. And we both discussed this is something I need to learn to do.
Yeah, because it's your money and it's your business. And at the end of the day, if things go south, it's coming back to Nicole, not Nicole's husband, right?
Yeah.
Like it's your business. And
Yes.
the building in a separate LLC is beautiful for tax strategy. And there's so much that you can do with cost segregation studies and all those things. But like the bank just cares about your numbers. They don't care about your beautiful design work or how amazing your team is or how great your clients are. And I've seen so many times entrepreneurs sit down across from a banker and just get a slap in the face because they're like, well, what do you mean you're not going to give me the money? But all these things are great about my business. But if your financials are a mess, the bank's not going to give you the money.
Which is very, very true. I can't sit there and be like, but my Instagram, has great, great content. They don't care. They really do want to see the numbers. They want to see the projections, but they still also want to know what else is backing it, which is, you need that family support.
Absolutely. I love it. Nicole, this is magical. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us. And I do know we do know each other in person, and you're a beautiful human. We both showed up to one event in sequin outfits, and I'm like, we are going to be besties. I love it. Where can people connect with you?
Yes, so our website is R as in the letter Nickson, Nickson Interiors, and our handles on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube are all the R Nickson as well. And then I have a personal Instagram that's the dot Nicole Roe, where you can kind of see some more of the behind the scenes.
And the behind the scenes are funny because she has four boys, she has land, and she has a huge tortoise. What's the tortoise's name?
Milton.
And Milton gets his butt turned over all the time. And it is hilarious to see because Nicole is not a large human. Nicole tried to manhandle this big tortoise and turn him over. It's fantastic.
Yes, Milton stories seem to be our favorite from everyone.
Yes, Milton cracks me up. He misbehaves all the time. I didn't know tortoises were so opinionated.
So naughty.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your journey and helping us understand that luxury in alignment is possible and how it can empower us as entrepreneurs. Listener, we appreciate you being here. Make sure you like and subscribe. Remember, it is not what you make that matters, it is what you keep.